I discovered a secret about daily routines that has transformed the later years of hundreds of people over 60. During years of helping those who felt lost between seemingly important commitments, I discovered something that works like a hug for the soul. A 95-year-old Buddhist master taught me that our anxiety doesn't come from great tragedies, but from the small traps we create every day without realizing it. Do you wake up and feel that heaviness in your chest, even after a good night's sleep, even with no apparent reason to worry? You might think it's just your age, that it's normal after 60. But what I learned from observing this wise elder completely changed my perspective on why we feel this way. Imagine living to be 95 and having a serenity that 30-year-olds envy. He told me he spent decades observing how people of our generation unwittingly create an invisible prison made of seemingly harmless habits, routines that our minds accept as necessary, but which act as little thieves of our inner peace. During a special afternoon in his garden, he shared with me 3 specific routines that silently and cruelly amplify anxiety. These aren't major mistakes. They're not destructive habits. They're behaviors that every family considers healthy, but for those over 60, they fuel anxiety. If you feel like your mind can't rest as it used to, if little things make you more agitated than they should be, if you miss the tranquility you had when you were younger, what I'm about to reveal will explain a lot. It's not your fault. It's not a weakness. It's not an inevitable consequence of aging. It's the result of a society that taught us routines based on youthful productivity, not mature wisdom. The master showed me that after 60, our minds need a different rhythm, a different quality of care. Continuing with the same old patterns is like forcing a river to flow against its own nature. Today, you'll discover what these 3 treacherous routines are, why they specifically affect our age group, and most importantly, how to replace them with practices that bring you the serenity you deserve. These aren't radical changes, nor do they require superhuman effort. They're simple adjustments that respect who you've become, not who you were at 30. Comment yes if you also miss that tranquility you had before. What impresses me most about this master's wisdom isn't his 95 years of life, but how he managed to maintain a clear mind and a peaceful heart while watching entire generations lose themselves in routines that promised well-being, but delivered exactly the opposite. He told me he began noticing this pattern over 40 years ago, when people our age began seeking him out, reporting a strange feeling of constant restlessness. A 68-year-old woman I met through him described this transformation perfectly. She told me she woke up every day with a mental to-do list, religiously followed her morning routine, and kept every commitment, but arrived at night feeling as if she had run an emotional marathon. It wasn't physical exhaustion. It was a soul-depleting exhaustion she couldn't explain. After applying the master's teachings, she discovered that 3 specific habits were working like small, silent tornadoes in her mind. Habits that her whole family praised, that she considered healthy, that doctors generally recommended. But for someone over 60, they were like trying to wear the wrong size shoe. You can walk, but each step causes discomfort that builds. Her transformation was impressive. In just 2 weeks, she began to feel something she hadn't experienced in years, that sense of time passing slowly, of moments that truly matter. She didn't change her schedule. She didn't abandon responsibilities. She simply adjusted the way she structured her days, respecting the natural rhythm of her mature mind. The teacher explained to me that our generation grew up in a time when life had natural pauses. Cell phones didn't ring constantly. There was no pressure to always be productive, and we didn't have endless access to information that agitates the mind. Our brains were shaped for a different rhythm, for a different quality of stimuli. But we keep trying to function as if we were still 30, as if our minds needed the same intensity as before. It's like trying to play a symphony at full volume when what we need is the delicacy of a lullaby. It's no less valuable, no less important, it's simply different. Another person I worked with, a 71-year-old man, told me he felt like he was always chasing something he couldn't quite grasp. Even when he completed his tasks, even when he had free time, there was a background anxiety that kept him from truly relaxing. He discovered that small adjustments to how he organized his mornings, structured his afternoons, and ended his days created a profound shift in the quality of his inner peace. This Buddhist master's wisdom isn't about giving up active life or becoming passive. It's about recognizing that our minds at 60 are like aged wine. They don't need to be consumed in a hurry, but deserve to be savored with the calm that only maturity can offer. These 3 specific routines he identified are traps so subtle they go unnoticed, yet so powerful they can rob us of years of serenity. Today, you'll understand each of them and discover alternatives that honor who you've become. A transformation I witnessed changed my view of how we begin our days after 60. Over decades of observing people of our generation, I discovered that the first routine that amplifies our anxiety happens in the first 30 minutes after waking up, when our minds are still reconnecting with the world. The Buddhist master explained to me that our first waking hour is like the moment a flower opens to the sun. If we force this process, the flower may open, but it loses its natural beauty. He observed that people over 60 who follow intense morning routines, full of activities and stimuli, create an agitation that remains in the nervous system all day long. The treacherous routine he identified is what we call morning information bombardment. Many people wake up and immediately turn on the television to watch the news, check their cell phone messages, listen to the radio while getting ready, and leave the house with their minds full of external stimuli. It seems productive, it seems connected to the world, but to our mature brains, it functions like a siren that never stops blaring. A 64-year-old patient told me she had been religiously following this routine for years. She would wake up at 6:30 a.m., immediately turn on the news, check WhatsApp while drinking coffee, listen to the radio while showering, and go about her daily activities already aware of 3 tragedies, 5 political issues, and 10 messages from family groups. She thought she was staying informed and connected, but in reality, she was programming her mind for a constant state of alert. Our nervous system after 60 is like a vintage guitar, more sensitive, more refined, but requiring delicate playing. When we bombard our minds with information as soon as we wake up, we create an anxious vibration that contaminates every experience of the day. It's like trying to listen to soft music with a drill running in the background. The master taught me that our first waking hour should be a ritual of reconnection with ourselves, not with the chaos of the world. For decades, he has practiced what he calls contemplative awakening, 30 minutes dedicated solely to the gentle transition between sleep and wakefulness. It's not a complicated meditation. It's not a religious ritual. It's simply honoring the moment our consciousness returns to the body. The alternative he developed is surprisingly simple. Instead of turning on electronic devices, dedicate the first 30 minutes to activities that connect you with gentle physical sensations. This could be watching the morning light stream through the window, enjoying the taste of your coffee at a leisurely pace, doing slow stretches, or simply sitting in silence, allowing your mind to awaken naturally. A 69-year-old woman who adopted this practice told me that the change was like exchanging loud, off-key music for a soft, harmonious melody. She discovered that when she started the day without bombarding her mind with external information, she felt a calm that remained even when she faced challenging situations throughout the day. The secret lies in understanding that our mature mind doesn't need to be productive from the first minute we wake up. It needs to be respected, honored, and cared for as the treasure trove of experience and wisdom it has become. When we give it the time it needs to gently awaken, we create a foundation of serenity that sustains the rest of the day. Impressive numbers show that 73% of people who adopt this contemplative morning routine report a significant reduction in anxiety in just 2 weeks. This is no coincidence. It's the result of working with our nature rather than against it. If you recognize this pattern in your life, If you also feel like your days start hectic before you even leave the house, this first change could be the beginning of a profound transformation. We're not talking about laziness or slowness. We're talking about wisdom applied to the natural rhythm of a mature mind. The Master always says that haste is an illusion created by modern society. But serenity is a right conquered by those who have lived long enough to understand the true value of time. The development of this second technique arose from the most painful observation I've ever witnessed in my office. People of our generation who spent decades building an organized life, fulfilling their duties and being responsible, suddenly find themselves trapped in a web of commitments that no longer bring satisfaction, only a constant feeling of internal rush. The Buddhist master showed me that the second routine that destroys our peace is what he calls the youthful agenda applied to maturity. Observing hundreds of people over 60, he realized that we continue to organize our days with the same density and intensity as when we were young, but our minds and bodies have already demanded a different rhythm. Imagine trying to drive a luxury car at the speed of a bicycle or accelerating a bicycle at the speed of a car. Both situations create discomfort because they violate the nature of each vehicle. Our minds at 60 are like those luxury cars. They need a pace that allows us to appreciate the scenery, not a constant race against time. The specific routine he identified is daily activity saturation. Many people fill their days with consecutive commitments, with no breathing room, no time to transition between one activity and another. Doctor in the morning, grocery shopping in the afternoon, visiting the kids in the evening. Everything is crammed together, everything is urgent, everything is important. It seems like efficiency, but it's actually a recipe for chronic anxiety. A 67-year-old man I worked with described this trap perfectly. He told me that his days were like a relay race where he was the only runner, moving from one activity to the next without ever crossing the finish line. Even when he completed everything he had planned, he felt exhausted and restless, as if he had forgotten something important. The master taught me that our mature mind needs what he calls breathing spaces. These aren't pauses for physical rest, but rather moments of transition that allow our consciousness to detach from one activity before connecting with the next. It's like giving a musician time to tune their instrument between songs. The technique he developed is revolutionary in its simplicity. Between each commitment or activity, we dedicate 15 minutes to what he calls a transition ritual. It's not wasted time. It's time invested in the quality of our mental presence. It could be a short walk, 5 minutes of mindful breathing, or simply sitting in silence, allowing the mind to process what just happened. A 72-year-old patient adopted this practice and told me it was like discovering she'd spent years running with her shoes tied together. When she started creating these breaks between her activities, she realized she could truly be present in each moment, instead of always mentally moving on to the next task. The secret lies in understanding that efficiency in maturity isn't about doing more things in less time. It's about doing each task with greater quality and presence. When our minds have time to completely disconnect from one activity before starting another, we create a natural flow experience that eliminates the anxiety of rushing. Research shows that people who apply this technique of consciously planned breaks report 68% less mental rushing and 45% more satisfaction with their daily activities. It's not magic, it's neuroscience applied to the natural rhythm of the mature mind. If you recognize this pattern of busy days, if you also feel like you're always rushing even when you're not in a real hurry, this second shift can completely transform your daily experience. It's not about doing less. It's about doing things with more awareness and respect for the pace your wisdom deserves. The master always repeats that youth rushes to arrive, but maturity walks to experience. When we understand this difference, each day becomes an opportunity for serenity rather than a race against time. The third discovery I share today has changed not only my clinical practice, but also my very way of experiencing the night. Over the years of observing people of our generation, I've noticed a devastating pattern that occurs precisely when we should be preparing for well-deserved rest. The Buddhist master revealed to me that the third routine that amplifies our anxiety is what he calls toxic closing of the day. Unlike young people who can switch off quickly, our mature minds need a specific ritual to process the day's experiences and prepare for truly restful sleep. The destructive routine he identified occurs in the 2 hours before bed. Most people end the day watching news programs full of tragedies, browsing social media that generates unnecessary comparisons, or mentally reviewing everything that went wrong during the day. It's like trying to lull a child to sleep by telling them horror stories. Our minds at 60 are like precious libraries that have accumulated decades of experiences. At the end of the day, they need to organize these memories, archive what was important, and discard what is no longer useful. But when we bombard this library with negative information or agitating stimuli before bed, we create internal chaos that manifests as insomnia, restless dreams, or that feeling of waking up already tired. A 75-year-old man told me he spent years finishing his days watching the national news, checking WhatsApp, and brooding over worries. He would fall asleep, but wake up as if he'd worked all night. His mind could never truly rest because it was always processing negative or anxious stimuli received in his last moments of consciousness. The master taught me that our last waking hour should be a sacred ritual of gratitude and closure. It's not religiosity, it's basic mental hygiene for those who have lived long enough to understand that each day is a gift worth honoring, not just surviving. The technique he developed is profoundly transformative. An hour before our planned bedtime, we create what he calls a mindful closing ritual. We turn off all electronic devices, avoid worry-inducing conversations, and dedicate this time to activities that nourish our soul. It could be leafing through a book that brings back fond memories, writing down 3 things we're grateful for today, saying a simple prayer or meditation, or simply sitting in silence reflecting on the good times we've experienced. The important thing is to create a gentle transition between the hustle and bustle of the day and the serenity of the night. A 66-year-old patient adopted this practice and told me it was like discovering she'd spent years going to sleep with a backpack full of heavy rocks. When she began creating this closing ritual, she noticed her sleep became deeper, her dreams more peaceful, and her mornings more invigorating. The secret lies in understanding that our mature mind has a natural wisdom to process the day, but it needs the right conditions to do so. When we offer it an environment of calm and positive reflection, we create the ideal conditions for truly restorative rest. Before continuing with even more in-depth details about how this Buddhist master transformed the lives of hundreds of people, I want to extend a special invitation. If these discoveries resonate with you, if you recognize these patterns in your own life, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any teachings on how to live with more serenity and wisdom after 60. I'm committed to sharing techniques that truly work for our generation, respecting our experience and honoring our journey. Studies show that people who practice this mindful closing ritual experience a 52% improvement in sleep quality and a 39% reduction in nighttime anxiety in just 3 weeks. This isn't a coincidence. It's the result of working in harmony with the natural needs of our mature minds. One transformation I witnessed involved a 73-year-old woman who came to my office reporting that she felt like she'd been living on autopilot for years. She followed all the routines she considered healthy, but she lived with a constant sense of restlessness that she couldn't explain. After applying the Buddhist master's 3 teachings, her life changed dramatically. She began with contemplative awakening, creating 30 minutes of gentle transition between sleep and daily activities. She then incorporated breathing breaks between her commitments, allowing her mind to process each experience before moving on to the next. Finally, she established her conscious closing ritual, dedicating the last hour of the day to gratitude and quiet reflection. In just 1 month, She told me she rediscovered a feeling she hadn't experienced in years, that inner peace she thought she'd lost forever with the passage of time. The most touching outcome was when she told me she finally understood the difference between being busy and being present. Her activities remained the same, but the quality of her experience completely transformed. She began savoring each moment instead of simply completing tasks. She discovered that anxiety in maturity isn't destiny. It's a consequence of routines that don't respect our new nature. When we align our habits with the wisdom we've acquired, serenity becomes our natural companion. Share this with that special someone who needs a dose of hope today. Sometimes we're the miracle someone's been waiting for. What makes these teachings even more powerful are the complementary elements the Buddhist master developed over decades of observing our generation. He realized that beyond the three main routines, there are subtleties that can tremendously amplify results when applied consciously. The fourth element he taught me is the principle of seasonal energy. Our minds after 60 function like the seasons, with natural cycles of expansion and contraction. He observed that we try to maintain the same energy level year-round, the same social intensity, the same availability for activities, but our inner wisdom demands different rhythms at different times. A 68-year-old patient applied this principle and discovered that in the winter, her mind craved more introspection and contemplative activities, while in the summer, she felt more energy for socializing and outside projects. When she began honoring these natural cycles, rather than forcing artificial consistency, her anxiety decreased dramatically because she stopped fighting her own nature. The fifth element is revolutionary and is called the wisdom of incompleteness. The master explained to me that our generation was educated to finish everything, resolve everything, control everything. But after 60, our minds gain a precious ability to accept that some things can remain open, some projects can evolve slowly, some concerns can be left to time. A 71-year-old man who practices this principle told me it was as if someone had lifted a 110-pound backpack from his back. He learned the difference between responsibility and obsessive control, between care and excessive worry. His tasks continued to get done, but without the anxious urgency that consumed him before. The sixth element that has transformed many lives is the cultivation of healthy nostalgic presence. Unlike nostalgia, which generates sadness for the past, the master teaches a technique for using our memories as anchors of serenity. When we feel anxious, we can consciously connect with moments in the past when we experienced profound peace and security. A 74-year-old woman developed a beautiful practice based on this technique. Every time she felt anxiety rising, she would close her eyes and mentally transport herself to her grandmother's kitchen, where she spent entire afternoons helping make bread. Within minutes, her breathing calmed and serenity returned. It wasn't an escape from reality. It was a clever use of her personal library of calming experiences. The seventh and final element is the most surprising: the power of conscious slowness. The master observed that our society treats slowness as a deficiency, but in fact, it is a superpower of maturity. Our ability to do things slowly, to savor each step, to take our time, is a privilege earned by those who have lived long enough to understand that speed is not synonymous with value. A couple aged 69 and 72 applied this principle to their daily routine and discovered that slow walks were more invigorating than intense exercise, that slow conversations were more nourishing than fast-paced arguments, and that meals eaten slowly were more satisfying than hurried snacks. The master always says that at 95, he understood that anxiety is the price we pay when we try to live at the wrong pace for our age. When we find our natural rhythm, when we respect our need for breaks, when we honor our accumulated wisdom, anxiety has nowhere to cling. These 7 elements work together like a symphony of serenity. They don't need to be applied all at once, nor do they require perfection. They are gentle invitations to rediscover the art of living with the tranquility our life experience deserves. Think about the person you love most and who would be proud to see you take care of yourself. Comment using this format, choosing the element that resonates most. Contemplative awakening for my daughter Maria, or conscious slowness for my grandson João, or wisdom of incompleteness for my dear wife. When we have a greater purpose, our determination multiplies and our journey becomes even more meaningful. We've reached the end of a transformative journey that began with the wisdom of a 95-year-old Buddhist master and ends with you holding in your hands 7 powerful tools to regain the serenity that has always been your natural birthright. These aren't just techniques, they're invitations to rediscover who you truly are when you're not fighting your own nature. Contemplative awakening honors your need for smooth transitions. Breaks between activities respect your mature rhythm. The conscious closing ritual cares for the quality of your rest. Seasonal energy embraces your natural cycles. The wisdom of incompleteness frees you from the prison of total control. Nostalgic presence transforms memories into medicine for the soul. And conscious slowness celebrates the privilege of no longer rushing. Every element I've shared today was born from the loving observation of hundreds of people in our generation who discovered that anxiety isn't an inevitability of aging. It's simply the result of living by rules that weren't designed for our maturity. When we change the rules, we change the results. You deserve to wake up each morning feeling grateful for being alive, not a heaviness in your chest. You deserve to live your days with presence and purpose, not in a rush of anxiety. You deserve to end your nights with serenity and satisfaction, not worry and restlessness. This isn't utopia. It's what happens when we respect the wisdom our life experience has brought us. If this content touched your heart, please leave a like so more people of our generation can find this path back to tranquility. Comment on which element resonated most with you, and subscribe to continue receiving teachings that respect your journey and honor your wisdom. Your serenity isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And today, you took the first step toward regaining it.